Hello and welcome to the THC Show, episode 108, I believe. I'm your host, Neil Magnuson, and this is the show where we talk about truth, hope, and change, as well as THC, because usually our topics are along the lines of what's going on with the cannabis plant and the prohibition and those sorts of things. On the show today, we'll have 8 out of 10 Glenn from CannaMatch.ca. He'll join us for the 420 session. Jerry Martin will be here for the Martin Medical Moment. And we'll catch up with him on what's going on with his ongoing case before let's see, it's a Supreme Court application, constitutional challenge to do with low barrier access, to do with medical access through storefronts and challenging the government's system of having people only purchase online. So we'll catch up with Jerry and see how it's going with that. There's a couple of things coming up still to do with that court case. We'll check in with the CSP Healing Wave RV and update what's going on with all of that, and a few other things on the show as well. What I wanted to talk about off the top today was that DULF, a group in Vancouver, the Drug Users Liberation Front, has successfully applied to City Council, who has passed a motion to support a compassion club for the hard drugs. They are also applying to the federal government for a Section 56 exemption to be able to supply and procure and possess heroin, cocaine, crystal meth, and deal with the problem that we have here with drug misuse and overdose deaths as a result of a tainted drug supply and just overdose and drug deaths in general. Although without a tainted drug supply, the illegal drugs actually kill far less people than the legal drugs, alcohol, tobacco, and pharmaceutical drugs. But that's another topic. What's going on here is convoluted, to say the least. There needs to be safe supply of whatever drugs people want to use for themselves. There needs to be government oversight and regulation in ways that make sense on substances where problems can arise and where there are issues. And there needs to be proper education around those things, but there also needs to be proper access to those things for full-grown adults that have decided that that's what they want to use in their lives. The whole idea of prohibition is where the problem lies, and that's why it's all convoluted. So, I mean, they're going to be granted perhaps a license. I certainly contacted the councillor that's put the motion forward 2.5 years ago to support low barrier access to cannabis. I contacted her right away the day after they passed the motion to support a compassion club for hard drugs, and I queried her about the dynamics of that and logistics of that. Is City Council going to be directing the licensing department of Vancouver City to supply a license to the Compassion Club, even without federal approval to date? And if so, I mean, that's certainly what we've been looking for as well, and could we have that? Bigger questions around where the supply of those particular substances would come from. There's not much concern about where the supply of cannabis would come from. There's way too much government oversight on what's going on with the supply of cannabis. Anybody can grow cannabis, and anybody should be allowed to grow cannabis, and you should be allowed to grow enough cannabis that you can have other people that desire it remunerate you for it, because that's just commerce, and that's what humans do, and that's how we all live our lives, and that's what runs an economy. But with the harder substances, and especially with a tainted drug supply and other issues to do with people supplying these things, I guess, it is the case. Where are they going to get their supply from, and how is that all going to be handled? And it's convoluted. And it's convoluted because they're trying to fit this safe supply model of a compassion club style distribution network into a world where prohibition is the rule. And prohibition doesn't allow for any of that. And in fact, prohibition, I mean, do we not remember prohibition? Do we not? I mean, and when you think of prohibition, I mean, what we really think about, I mean, certainly my generation, what we thought about was alcohol prohibition. That was the big experiment. That was the one, that's what prohibition was about. There was pro-hees running around and alcohol was prohibited and blah, blah, blah. They ended alcohol prohibition. and they brought in a prohibition against other substances, a whole bunch of them, but mostly just the plant medicines, and primarily cannabis was the one that they've gone to war against with the prohibition. But what they didn't learn during the original alcohol prohibition is what needed to be learned. And if they hadn't learned it then, we certainly hopefully would have learned it by now. That prohibition does not result in people stopping the use of the drugs that are being prohibited. In fact, it's the opposite. Many people are just wired that way. They're going to seek out that which they're told they can't do, and there's going to be an increase in demand for things that are prohibited. That's always been the case. These are the lessons of prohibition, is that there's an increase in demand, especially amongst young people, especially amongst the marginalized people. And that increase in demand will result in a supply. It'll result in a supply, if made illegal, if criminalized, will get more and more dangerous the more and more you try to enforce it. It's impossible to enforce your way out of that situation that you arise in when you try to prohibit substances. You get an underground supply regulated by violence, untrustworthy, unsafe, unfair, overpriced, dangerous as can be, and something that we as a society need to steer way away from. Every shooting as a result of a fight over a drug turf is over $1 million in investigative costs for us as a society, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Prohibition doesn't work. The prohibition of the substances that drive people in the neighborhood that we're in here on the downtown east side of Vancouver, all of these hard drugs, the different tents that are set up along the sidewalks where people are distributing these things in there, it's the root of most of the crime in this city. We would have a very, very low crime rate if we didn't have a bunch of poor, desperate drug users trying to get what they need so they can get what they need. And what they need to get what they need is money. So where are they going to get money if they don't have it and they don't have a job? Well, they're going to go steal it from somebody. They're going to go rob something. They're going to pilfer something somewhere. And almost all of the break-ins of the cars and the businesses and the hold-ups and the muggings and almost all of our petty crime that we deal with as a society is driven by prohibition. Prohibition results in an increase in demand. And when doctors are part of this scheme to get people onto these opioids and other drugs that are highly addictive, how many lives are being wasted by that? By us allowing for a system where the medical profession, the industrial medical complex, can be so influenced by pharmaceutical influence and desires for profit that they hook so many people on these drugs so that they become repeat users and try to satisfy the need for greed for the owners of these pharmaceutical companies. It's an insane system that we've allowed to happen here. And it's all tied right into prohibition. And how many of our families' lives, how many of our loved ones' lives have been ruined and wasted by the simple addiction to these drugs and the cycle of addiction that happens and the cycle down into poverty and all of the rest of it that happens as a result. And then there's all the lives that are ruined by prohibition. The people that are criminalized. The families that are broken apart. The damage there is incalculable. You can't even put a dollar figure on it. When you arrest somebody and take away their liberty for even a short period of time, in most cases they lose their job. In many cases they lose their housing. In many cases they have families depending on them. This prohibition model has been ruining people's lives for decades under the guise of trying to help people not be harmed by misuse of drugs. The maximization of harm model is what the government, on behalf of the corporate greed, have been using to maintain their prohibition for all of this time. They're going to hurt the hell out of you to protect you from some drugs that may or may not hurt you, that you may or may not use properly, that you may or may not even need, but maybe you need them. and they're going to prevent you from getting them as well. There's the denial of these life-saving, in many cases, medicines, and certainly in the case of cannabis. The denial of access to cannabis has obviously killed thousands of people and resulted in misery and suffering for decades for millions of people around the world because they've been denied access to cannabis, which is one of the best natural medicines on the planet. Google your endocannabinoid system if you're new to the program and you don't know what I'm talking about and you think I may be exaggerating. Cannabinoids mimic our endocannabinoid system of chemicals that are made and released into our system to regulate all of the other systems in our body when things aren't right. That's what cannabis and the cannabinoids do for us as supplements. That's why it's used for all of these different things for medical purposes. That's why dispensaries, medical dispensaries, have such huge long lists of things that cannabis can be effective for. It is nature's best medicine, and we've been denied it because of the stupid prohibitions. The amount of money that have been wasted. The amount of police resources that have been wasted. The hate for police and government that results. The hate that results towards people that use illegal drugs by those people who use legal drugs. The divide that it causes between people. The obeyers and the not obeyers. And all the lies that are told. And in the case of cannabis, the reefer madness that was told for years and years that my grandmother went to her grave believing. Cannabis doesn't make you violent and insane. In fact, it's a wonderful tool for people who are suffering with many forms of mental illness. And many people are suffering many forms of mental illness. And here's a medicine that works well. It helps people sleep. Lack of sleep is one of the big drivers of mental illness. And cannabis, in its form of indicates, well, cannabis is a wonderful medicine, and it isn't just a medicine. It's a whole wide range of medicines because the cannabinoids, there's many of them, some of them in very tiny amounts, but still have amplification effects and other effects that the entourage of cannabinoids, depending on the different ratios of the cannabinoids, can have many, many different effects. Right from the extreme of the indicas that in most cases cause people to be relaxed. And even in the case where it doesn't do that, the sativas then relax those people. But cannabis has all of the potentials within all of the different strains to find the one that's going to do for you what you need to be done. Be it relaxing, be it being stimulated, being it up and awake and active and doing what you need to do, or be it to calm down and relax and chill and watch a movie. All of those things are in there when it just comes to your mental state and the moods that you're in. It can enliven you and it can put you to sleep. And however you want to use it, you can find those ways. But not being allowed to have it, being denied the ability to access it, means that a lot of people have suffered insomnia needlessly. And by a lot of people, I mean millions of people have suffered insomnia needlessly because of lies and prohibitions against this plant. The prohibition, not only does it not work, it has incredible consequences, some intended and some they call unintended. But it's harming a lot of people, and it's profiting a few that keep it going. And by a few, I mean probably a few groups. And within those few groups, there's probably thousands of people that are profiting quite severely off the back of prohibition, while people suffer, have their lives ruined, wasted. Some scumbags are making a lot of money off of that. And to me, that's kind of the definition of evil. If you're willing to have people harmed in serious ways so that you can make a bunch of money, I think that's what's evil on this planet. There's other forms of evil as well, but that's a pretty evil one. Because the level of suffering that we're talking about, the level of sickness that many people are involved with and suffering in their lives that cannabis could be effective for, that they're denied proper access to, is extremely significant. And it's certainly significant to each one of those individuals that is suffering. And I've met many of them that have been extremely angry when they find out that the right dose of the right group of cannabinoids can solve serious issues for them, and that the government's been lying to them about it, withholding information about it. It's infuriating. as anybody would be infuriated. And even if it's not you, if it's your family member, I mean, how do you feel if it's your mother that's been, forced to suffer because she couldn't get access to cannabis because nobody knew that cannabis worked properly because the government doesn't want that information out there, and they've been telling lies to the opposite, and it's been going on for decades, and we all know it, and yet here we are. We're still doing it. The skewed science that comes out of this. When the government decides to immorally prohibit the plant medicines to support the interests of those with patentable substitutes, they come up with all kinds of crazy science. And they deny all kinds of truth. So society in general is confused and misinformed because the government has to maintain this lie that they've got going on that'll justify what they're doing. And it's all in the name of making big money. Trust me, all of this is in the name of making big money, other than the slight motivation of also wanting to hurt people that disobey. There's some of that in there too. There's self-righteous people that think that they should punish people on behalf of God who would disobey what man tells another man to do. It's ludicrous. It's upside down. It's hypocrisy at the highest level throughout. And that's how we're supposed to live our lives in a society filled with such hypocrisy. And we're supposed to go along with this and somehow make sense of this, because we all want to make sense of what's going on. We all want to think that there's some logic to something. I mean, everybody I know that gets involved with trying to figure out drug prohibition scratches their head and goes on about, well, that doesn't make any sense. If they're trying to help people, if these are dangerous substances, if society's better off without them, and they know better than us, and they're just trying to help us, they must be right, of course. It must make sense somehow. But it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense that you would prohibit something that you can tell pretty quick on is only going to cause an increase in the demand and the use of that, and a use in a way that is going to be, on the dangerous side of things, and especially the dangerous substances. These things, these plants that have potential to do harm and overdose easily, they need to be available in ways that make sense, because when they're not, they're available in ways that don't make sense. They're not regulated properly. They're dangerous like that. The government needs to be involved with some of that. But not to the point where it's prohibited, not to the point where there's going to be an underground market for it, not to the point where prohibition kicks in. Prohibition is the enemy of all of this. Prohibition is what we should have learned a long time ago. Causes nothing but discrimination against people, dividing of people, the ruining of people's lives, like I say, an increase in the whole problem you're trying to solve. And when you find out that it's all orchestrated on purpose and being taken advantage of, and the whole idea is that they're going to make a whole bunch of money off of this. And we talked about the treatment industry last week and how much money is being made off the backs of addicts that they don't want to get cured. There's no real incentive to do that. It's 4:19. I got a lot more to say about this, but we're going to take a break. I think you get the point. We need to end prohibition, and we need to understand as a society that that's something that governments should not be allowed to do. And if they're going to do it, there needs to be proper justification for it. And we need to take the lessons of the past and bring them with us as we try to decide for ourselves how we're going to be governed. And we do need to think about this as people and how we're going to be governed. We've been governed as we've been governed for the last all of our lives, and it's not working. We've been sold out to corporate greed, the financial elite, to people in power that don't care about the actual masses of people that even have to vote them into these positions. It's such a system where they make us even vote for parties that don't actually care about us, that aren't actually going to work for us, that have their own agendas. And those agendas are about making the rich richer. And we have nothing else to vote for, or no way to get out of this at this point, and we need to get out of it. So let's all sit around with a peace pipe and talk about how we can do things better and what we really want as people with respect to governance, and take the whole idea of prohibition into that and make sure that we don't go there anymore. Because all it does is mess up our children, mess up our society, cost us a huge amount of money, and doesn't do nothing to reduce the harm done by the misuse of drugs. There's much better ways to do it, and we should have learned that a long time ago. And the only reason that our government has not learned that a long time ago is because it's making a lot of money. When something doesn't make sense, you can count on it making a lot of money for somebody. And the more stupid and illogical it is, and the more people are being harmed and yet they continue to do it there are, it's because somebody's making a ton of money off it. And that's criminal. It's corrupt. We need to stop it. 420. 420. Nope. 420. Oh, and then it turns 1. But hey, I was still in there. Besides, I think 420 is a 10-minute interval.
Is it? All right.
Well, you know.
Yeah, we got time.
You can't be expected to get it all done right at 420.
Well, it depends on who you
Especially
are.
people who are chill. Well, who you are, we're all chill. You know, we're all people who don't take it too seriously and don't get it done right on time most of the time, unless it's important.
Yeah.
I always get shit done on time if it's important.
Is that a Vancouver Canucks lighter, too?
Yes, it is.
Well, see that? You're wearing the shirt and got the lighter today.
This, I mean, right now, not quite yet.
No,
we're
not
about
quite
20
yet.
minutes away from the kickoff to the new NHL season, where they're going to start on time and play the full schedule of games in front of full audience.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think we're only 50% here.
Although I can't go.
In Ontario, they're 100%. Right.
There'll be fairly full buildings in any case. So, oh, geez, it's exciting, you know. For me, I've been. I don't know if I was ever torn by it. I had to make a decision back with the Herb School when I had done the renovation on that, read The Emperor Wears No Clothes, come to the conclusions I did that made me quit my job and say, you know, I got to do something about this. This is so wrong. This prohibition causes so much harm, is so bloody wrong that I can't live with myself if I don't try to do everything I can to solve it. And I'm going to quit my job because I can't stand just going to work and building things for people when there's this serious problem of prohibition against cannabis and other plant medicines going on. It was primarily cannabis at the time. I had to learn about how it all fit together and how all of it. But I mean, there was that moment in time where I had to think, and that's the first thing I thought of. To tell you the truth, when I had my real epiphany, and I was calling my boss to say, you know, I can't come to work. I got to do this. I got to do something. And one of the first thoughts I had was, what am I going to do about hockey? You know, I'd been through a divorce. It had been about 10 years by that time, but still, what I occupied my life with was hockey really. It had been such a big part of my life, playing when my cousin Keith Magnuson, through his brother, sent me equipment that I could start playing hockey as a young teenager. And, you know, playing hockey most of my life into adulthood, coaching my son's hockey and other kids' hockey, watching it, you know, having the Canucks get a team. I think I was 12 years old or something like that. I'm not sure, but... yeah, I was actually. Now they know when
you're 12.
And you know, and that's a very impressionable age to be at for sure. So hockey meant a lot to me, and then playing hockey put me on a different path from the one I was on. I was on a pretty bad path, and it got me to quit smoking cigarettes. It got me with a bunch of different people. It got me focused on goals. It got me excited about life, and it really changed my group of friends and everything. But that moment in time where I had to think, what am I going to do about hockey? Because, like I say, for the 10 years prior, since my marriage ended, I had really filled my life with anticipating every Canucks game. You know, listening, reading everything about, you know.
You probably weren't the only guy that
It's a life saver for a lot of people. You know, when hockey goes down, it's really serious. There's a lot of people that you know, commit suicide.
Even Survivor went down. Right? So there's lots of people who are like, oh my God, Survivor,
it means a lot to a lot of people. It means a lot to me.
Shows and stuff.
It's not just the greatest game on earth. It's the fastest, most skill-required, incredible game of all the games. But, you know, for me as a Canadian and how I grew up and the influences that it had with me, it's been a really big important part of my life. So that was why, that was one of the first thoughts that I had when I was going to quit my job to try to do something about prohibition. What am I going to do about hockey? And it didn't take more than a few seconds for me to realize this is more important than hockey.
But if they were prohibitioning hockey, you'd be right in, right?
Oh, man.
You'd be right in there.
If they prohibited a few other things, a lot of us would be all in, you know? So I thought, I'm going to have to not be a hockey fanatic. I can't possibly be, because this is a really huge problem. It really had impacted me. I really had a moment of epiphany where I cried my eyes out. I recognized, you know, what I'd learned that long weekend, doing that renovation, reading The Emperor Wears No Clothes, having David explain a lot of different things to me because he'd been learning this stuff for years before me, and all of it just making so much sense. And at that moment when it all just hit me, how wrong this was and how bad it was, and that I had to do something about it. I couldn't live my life not doing something about it. I thought, what am I going to do about hockey? And I thought, well, hockey, this is way more important than hockey.
Yeah.
And then you know what happened? That was just before the hockey season. It was in August.
Yeah.
And they went on strike.
Oh, so you didn't have to worry.
The universe provides, right? They went on strike.
Oh, there you go.
The whole year was gone.
Oh, there you go.
And then another off season
you got used
ahead.
to not watching hockey.
There was no hockey to think about, and I was so immersed in what all this was about and how it got to be. It gave you the time to get immersed. It gave me the time, but being immersed in trying to undo prohibition is really nerve-wracking, I guess. I don't know what the words are. It's very intense. Mm-hmm. It's all-encompassing. It can be really all-encompassing and overwhelming.
Yes.
I came to learn that there'd been a number of people that went full force into activism that didn't last very long because it really burns people out. There's a lot to be angry about. There's a lot to be really sad about. It seems frustrating when you start to understand the powers that are involved in maintaining prohibition. You're up against the police, the government, the medical profession, the big corporations, the rich on the planet. And they've done a great job of convincing everybody that these illegal drugs are bad. Yeah. Anybody who uses them, they're scummy, dirty, bad people. They're disobedient. They should be in jail. They should be shot, for fuck's sakes. Yeah. Sorry, Annie Barbie, but this is truth, and this is what drives me. This makes you really, really angry. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. I spent a year and a half without hockey, being really, really angry about just how bad this was and how wrong it was. And how stupid it was that it could be going on and be this wrong, right? Like that really, it was like a 9/11 moment for me, right? Mm-hmm. When you think, how could it be that wrong? How could people fly a plane into a building? Well, for me, it was like, how could this be so wrong? People being hurt so bad, this costing us so much and be so obvious, and all these authorities involved in it, and we can't turn this around. We can't stop. Am I living in such a corrupt world? And it really was shocking to me.
What made that person fly that plane into the building? What made them angry to that point, right? They being corrupt and stuff like that. Somebody corrupted that pilot or that person, right?
Corruption causes us so much problems.
It does. It does.
I mean, that's what a person does if they're so crazy that they can't stand it anymore. That they've tried everything.
They think that there's no better way.
It's been tormenting them for their whole lives. There's nothing they can do. Well, here's something they can do, right? Yeah. I've thought about not flying planes into buildings. Never thought about blowing anything up.
No.
Never thought about hurting anybody in any way.
Yeah.
I take my responsibility as a human being seriously. I had fights when I was growing up. I wanted to beat up bullies.
Yeah.
But no, seriously. I've thought about hunger strikes. I've thought about, walking in and doing a sit-in in the middle of a TV studio and saying, you guys need to pay attention to this. You know? I thought, oh, what can you do? What can you do? And it's a process, you can't do any one thing, and no one person can do everything. There's a whole bunch of things. It's like it requires the whole village, each one bringing their own skills and whatever tools or ideas they have, and arriving on scene, and then working to take down the bad system that's going on. We need to all do that. We need to all bring our skills and our tools into this and take down this bad system that we find in. Correct the path, as Jody Wilson-Raybould likes to say, that she's a corrector of the path. Well, she didn't correct the path. No,
she found it very hard.
She was in on the Cannabis Act, and and I don't like that very much. She's supposed to be a corrector of the path. We need correctors of the path. The path has been taken off course, and we're heading into bad times if we don't get off this course. We need to reset this idea of being free people with public servants in a democracy, of being able to vote on stuff. We need to reset that. We need to rethink that. We need to understand that whatever governance system we put into place must be limited. It cannot have absolute power, because absolute power corrupts. And right now there's absolute power in the office of the Prime Minister. He can make whatever law he wants, it seems. Although with a minority government, not as much.
No, he's got to
so that's true too. And thank goodness for that.
You mentioned vote. there was a vote in Italy. You said that we had to bring that up too.
Okay, and we should just mention that the Italians have managed to put together a petition. They've got over 500,000 signatures. They have forced it onto the ballot. They're going to vote for legalization coming up here
right?
on a referendum in Italy.
Yeah.
So good on them for that. And then, bit by bit, place by place, around the world, person by person, idea by idea, we can make a difference. We can change things.
A new company helping in the CSP. I got the link ready to put up.
Certicraft, a company that helps craft growers transition into the legal marketplace. They're a good company and they care about the CSP, and that's what really matters to me. And they've decided they want to help us. If you're a grower and you're thinking about transitioning into the legal marketplace, I'm going to talk for just a moment about that. Then you can get a hold of these at referral@certicraft.com.
I already put
it's
it
in
there.
the links.
There you go.
We bang against government a lot on these stores that they have, and the reason for that is because they're not allowing for low barrier access. They're not allowing for medical access. We got Jerry Martin coming on a little bit from now, and we're going to talk to him about that as well. But this whole system of legalization that they've brought in is to capitalize on the so-called non-medical, recreational, adult use cannabis marketplace, maintaining higher than prohibition prices, maintaining prohibition in all of its forms. And all of those issues I talked about off the top of the show are all still going on full-blown here in Canada with so-called legalization. Legalization did not mean legalization for all of the people that were involved with cannabis. It only meant legalization where the government is now going to control who gets to have licenses to produce cannabis, and anybody who doesn't is still not only part of the old prohibition, but they increased penalties, they've increased money for enforcement, and all of that. We still have full-blown prohibition going on here. But the worst of it all is that the sick people, the people that are using it for medical purposes, the daily users who need cannabis for whatever they're using it for daily, are shut out of this system. Not only can they not get medical grade cannabis of any sort in these stores, but the price of what they do have is through the roof. And daily users and the average person can't even touch it. And that was supposed to come down with legalization. Ending prohibition was supposed to reduce the price of cannabis down. So I'm not in favor of government stores or supporting them to this degree at this point because the government is not allowing for low barrier access. But they're going to have to.
Yeah.
They have to.
Eventually
They have to do this. And when that happens, and even without that happening, which I believe it will, I'm not stopping until it does, but even without that happening, the regulations are going to have to come down.
Yeah.
There's going to have to be more access, more reasonable access down the pike. They are not my enemy unless they're advocating to block access to low barrier cannabis. Cannabis can be produced expensively. There are connoisseur growers that have spent a lifetime learning their craft, that put tons of money into equipment, that pay huge hydro bills and have the greatest equipment because that's what they do. They want the best and they put the best into it. And there's people that want to pay lots of money for weed. They want to buy the best cannabis. They want to buy from the people that are connoisseurs, and there's demand for that, and they deserve to have high-end stores and whatever they want to pay. I have no problem with that. I am not their enemy. They are not my enemy or our enemy when we're seeking low barrier access, as I say, unless they're actively advocating to block access to cannabis, which doesn't have to be grown so expensively and can still be fabulous cannabis. You can grow it in hybrid greenhouses. You can grow it outdoors for a couple bucks a pound. Mother Nature grows it for free if you find it.
All it cost me was fish water from my tank this year.
Yeah, and that's because you wanted to, or you could put a little bit of seawater or whatever. Yeah. It doesn't cost much to produce good outdoor cannabis or good hybrid greenhouse cannabis, and that needs to be made available. The government's not allowing poor people to have access to cannabis that can be grown as cheaply as heirloom tomatoes and these other fruits and vegetables, the cherries and the tomatoes and the strawberries and the grapes. All of that stuff is about the same to produce, and if anything, cannabis produces more biomass per cubic meter than those do. So, there's no reason why there can't be low barrier access. I believe the government's going to have to allow that. We have to force them because the rich people at this point have the government's word, or somehow they have them by the short and curlies, or some way they've got them protecting this monopoly of keeping the prices high and shutting everybody out and keeping prohibition going.
I was talking to Cy last night, and we're hearing about some of these companies that are taking the illegal ones and buying them and then just shelving their products. So there is some of that happening too.
There's a lot of corruption and manipulating and things that go on.
Where you might be thinking you're going illegal, but this company's going to buy you out and just put your stuff on a shelf, and you'll have to start again or whatever. So Certicraft at referrals at certicraft.com. They're going to donate money if you drop Cannabis Substitution Program name in your referral. I believe that's the deal. And they get $250, right?
So they're going to deposit some money into our account there, and that's great. That's fabulous. I mean, we need all the help we can get. The Cannabis Substitution Program, we'll get to a little later on in the show, is the main driver of all of this. It's our quest to have low barrier access to cannabis, and this is how we're trying to get it. And so these people have been great in deciding that between now and American Thanksgiving, which is I believe November 25th,
something like that,
they will donate money to the Cannabis Substitution Program if you're referring and joining up with them. Check them out anyway. They're really worth checking out for sure. They will help you if you're a craft grower. They will help you with that whole process of transitioning into the legal marketplace. And I know that's a very difficult road to navigate, and so it's we need professional help with that. So good on them for wanting to help that all happen. I believe the legal marketplace is the way to go. That's what we've all been fighting for. That's what we want, is proper, legal, properly regulated cannabis. But that's got to allow for low barrier access, and so that's our thing. Mm-hmm. The other thing I want to mention is BC Craft Farmers Co-op has been so awesome. They've had a couple of fundraisers where they've raised money for the Cannabis Substitution Program. They're a group of craft growers that want to be included into the legal marketplace, and they should be, and we should have access to their products. And so they're, again, going to have a fundraiser this coming Sunday, and I just want to give a shout-out to them and all the great work that they're doing. It's online. It's online. Okay. So BC Craft Farmers Co-op, and I'm sure you can find that. And there's a fundraiser, there's an auction, there's things that are going on. And so very exciting about all of that, too, and very thankful to those people and everybody else that's doing things to help us with what we're doing here, which is to try to maintain a program of helping people get off of opioids through low barrier access to cannabis and fighting for a store. So thanks.
Yeah, one more thing.
Yep.
CannaMatch.
CannaMatch.ca.
Going international.
Beautiful.
We've had some people signing up from Spain, Australia, Ireland. If you guys are out there and you're doing that and you want some more results in your area, just share the CannaMatch link. And then that way people get to see where it is, and then they can add on themselves too. So
CannaMatch.ca, it's a great way to meet people that are fellow cannabis lovers. If you're traveling and you need a hookup, that's probably a way to find somebody who knows where you can find a hookup. Lots of good reasons to join CannaMatch.ca, and good on you for doing that.
4,330 registrations so far. We're getting there.
Growing every day, I'm sure. And,
this weekend we were just getting new registrations. So.
A good way to unite the cannabis community. A good way to keep in touch with people, meet new friends, and all the rest of that. Networking is a very important thing. So, thanks so much, sir. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Have as much fun as you can.
I'll try.
So Jerry Martin is a dispensary owner from Whitewood, Saskatchewan, a small town east of Regina, that started a dispensary many years ago in an effort to give back to his community. He ran that dispensary under strict protocols, those that were developed here in Vancouver for the Compassion Club and the other dispensaries that started to open to provide medical access through storefronts, and wanted to become into the mainstream of the marketplace, as all dispensary owners did. And that's what he believed would happen. That's what Trudeau led those dispensary owners to believe. He had mentioned that dispensary owners should be transparent in their operations, and Jerry was all of that. So operating on strict protocols to have doctors on board, confirming diagnoses for people to allow them access to cannabis, and all the rest of that, still found himself a victim of Trudeau's cartel's legalization. Legalization meant the end of medical cannabis dispensaries and access through storefronts to medical cannabis users. They didn't go down easy. This battle to have access through storefronts has been going on for a long time, and it had grown to the point where it was a big driver of the legalization that happened. But those dispensaries were supposed to be included in legalization, and they were not. And in the case of Mr. Martin and his dispensary there in Whitewood, Saskatchewan, he had been open for 4.5 years. He had 1,000 people that were members of his dispensary that he was helping out. And when legalization came and he got a letter from Health Canada demanding that he cease and desist his operation, it was not a decision that he could make. It was not a decision that anybody could make that has an ounce of conscience. If you've been running a dispensary where you've been breaking the law, risking your liberty and your possessions for however long you've been doing it, to help sick people get access to a miracle plant that has given them back their lives or saved their lives or given them a level of wellness that they were not getting from pharmaceutical medicines or the medical profession. And these people are grateful to you and express that regularly, and you know how much you're helping these people, and there's 1,000 of them. And then the government comes along and says, hey, we're legalizing cannabis and you're not going to be included, and you're going to have to close down and open a non-medical store if you're going to open anything at all, and you're going to have to apply for that and you probably won't get it. And in the meantime, you're supposed to shut down your business, and you're supposed to shoo away all these customers, all these patients, all these suffering people that you've been helping for all of this time. And if you don't do that, then you're going to be illegal, and you're going to risk your liberty and your possessions. Well, you've been risking your liberty and your possessions for the last 4.5 years operating your dispensary in the first place in a small town in Saskatchewan, where of course you're at risk every day. Nobody's going to close down. That's cruel and unusual to suspect that anybody would shut down their dispensary and turn away 1,000 sick people so that they could not be illegal when they'd been illegal through the whole thing and doing the right thing. And now legalization is coming. You've been promised by the Prime Minister that the medical patients are going to be okay, and you're told to close down. You don't believe it. You can't believe it. You can't think for a minute that could be true. So you don't close down. You keep hanging on. You keep thinking they're going to change their mind, right? They're going to let me run my business and help these people, right? They're not going to make me stop helping people, right? But then they actually come and they arrest you, and they put you in handcuffs, and they take away your possessions, your cars and your bank account and your houses. And they shut down your store, and they tell you you're a criminal, and they use $1 million, who knows how many millions of dollars has been spent now, because now it's been 4.5 years since that happened. 4.5 years of over 40 court appearances at our cost to drag Mr. Martin before a judge at some point where they can see if he's guilty of harming people, you would think. But apparently that doesn't matter if you didn't harm anybody, because he didn't harm anybody. In fact, he's got hundreds of people that'll tell you he helped them profoundly. But none of that seems to matter in this corrupt system that we're living under. So here we are. It's been 4.5, almost 5 years, coming up in November, since the whole arrest thing happened. And now there's been a day in a Zoom meeting in court with a judge and some lawyers and some affidavits cross-examined, and kind of like getting your day in court, but not really. You don't have anybody there to support you. You know, some people are listening in, but you don't even really know. And but yeah, he's had his day in court, I guess. And then it was a good affidavit, and the cross-examination went very well. But I can't tell you about any of it because there's a publication ban on it. But it's a constitutional challenge that was brought by Mr. Martin and 2 other people that also had dispensaries in Saskatchewan. And so we'll wait and see. There's still some closing things to happen, and then we'll wait and see. But in the meantime, let's find out how Jerry's doing. Long introduction. Thanks for being patient.
Lighter.
Oh, I'm stealing your lighter.
I need to light a joint.
Yeah.
Yours is there, yeah. Thanks.
Surprised it didn't end up. If I was standing up, it would have been in my pocket by now. Reflex, not intent. How you doing, sir?
Okay, and you?
I'm all right. I'm getting more frustrated by the moment here,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure you can feel that.
Yeah, well, it's coming up again. Maybe this will be the end. Who knows?
So, well, aren't you waiting now? Is it the 6th?
The 6th and then the
16th?
16th and 17th or something. Yeah.
And then an unknown duration. You got one there?
Yeah, good news is I think they're going to give me my passport back here sometime in the next few days or week. So. And change my bail so that I don't have to report anymore.
I believe in hope, Jerry. I think it's an important component. I don't mean to lose you your hope or anything, and hopefully I'm not. But weren't you telling us this like a couple months ago?
Oh,
that you were
a year
get
ago.
Your passport back? I mean, that seems like months ago.
Well, they've actually filed the paperwork now, so.
Okay.
We'll see.
It
But they won't
seems
give
to
me
be-
the car back.
And then that's a final on the car?
Yeah, they don't give them that
Doesn't
car
matter
back.
what the outcome of the...
They don't want to give anything back.
Do they even have it?
Oh yeah, they have one left. One of the three. It's still in pound there. But of course it's been sitting there for 5 years, right? So who knows if it even works.
This is one of the things that happens.
Yeah.
It's a property forfeiture. It's a very, very, the most lucrative aspect of policing and how they maintain their budgets and ability to spend money on stuff is the property forfeiture thing. And it is extremely corrupt. The people have lost all kinds of property without ever being convicted of the charge that they were charged with. Seldom do you get back what you had, and if you do, you don't get back all of what you had or in any kind of condition.
Or it's at a date.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it's not any condition that's worth what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a real bad part of what's going on in our so-called justice system, and I'm really sorry that there's been such loss on your part, that probably will never be recovered. I don't know. Are you in a position to sue them, depending on outcomes of things?
No, Paul said he couldn't sue. Yeah. It was constitutional.
They
challenge.
insulate themselves quite a bit on these things.
Yeah.
These politicians, they're not accountable. Another big problem with our system is they don't have limits on them and they're not accountable. And so, they get to kind of get away with whatever they want. If you don't like what they do, if you don't like the fact that they brought in legalization that is profiting the rich at the expense of the poor and the sick, and maintaining prohibitions that are ruining people's lives, and all the long list that I just gave earlier in the show about how bad it is, if you don't like any of that, well, oh man, eh? So yeah, I'm getting, I don't think I'm getting burnt out because, I won't let that happen. But I'm sure feeling it. I've been feeling it for a long time. I'm feeling it for the first night I cried my eyes out back at the herb school in 2004. And I've said it a few times. I don't think I ever wake up any less angry about the whole situation as I go through the list of, and I just scratched the surface there too, right? Like I had 20 minutes to basically talk about the fact that prohibition is continuing. If anything, increased from where it was, alongside of a legal regime of monopolizing cannabis through government licenses that maintain prohibition prices and harm all of the people that are still being harmed by prohibition and still shut out the sick people and all the rest of it. It's very, very frustrating and,
Yeah, you think they
maybe
learn
more.
from their mistakes, but they just keep on doing the same shit?
But they're making money, so it's not really mistakes for them. It's not about. It's not so much about learning from their mistakes as it is about trying to maintain these revenues that are coming in, and still trying to give us what they know we've fought successfly for. Right. It's like, hey, you guys won the whole legalization battle. You've got stores now, and so go away and stop protesting. And no, we didn't get legalization. No. All of the vendors and growers and suppliers, almost all, not all. There's
everybody can be a criminal.
Yeah.
All right. A little extra gram in their package, a misweighed package, could land them in jail for 14 years, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So sell to the wrong person. Someone too young, your younger family member, a cousin.
Yeah.
Oh,
they could go to smoke one of their CBD
so...
joints, and half of them have THC. They put the wrong stuff in the wrong package.
They can have their stores. I'm not saying they can't have their stores. I'm saying that they need to allow stores for the sick people, and that's what your fight is about. Talk a bit about the problems with the government's system of access that you're fighting against. I mean, what is your constitutional challenge addressing with respect to access?
Yeah, basic access, really. Being able to walk into a store, and getting it off a shelf, smell it. People
can just get it online, can't they?
They can, but they can't smell it. They can't see it. They still can't see it or smell it in the stores they got now.
But the problem, of course,
nor can they get any advice on it for medical at the stores.
Right.
A lot of people can't afford it. A lot of people can't use computers. A lot of people can't read.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I was setting you up there because not everybody can get it online, and that's kind of the big issue. Yeah. There's lots of people.
The internet, let alone,
A lot of people can't get it online, and a lot of people wouldn't want to get it online.
And I'm assuming a lot of people, these libraries where there's public access probably don't allow cannabis sites.
No, I don't think they do.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't been in the library for quite a while because of the internet.
Yeah.
But the last time that I was in there, they would not allow access to a cannabis culture site.
Yeah.
And I thought that was, in fact, we had a little protest there. Where was that? Was that in Nelson, BC? Yes, it was. It was the library in Nelson, BC on one of the Freedom Tours. And I went down into the library there to try to access cannabis culture site because, you know, back in the day, before there was Facebook and social media, there was still social media. There was cannabis culture online, and they had the cannabis culture forums. Were you part of that?
Right. No, I wasn't. No, I was a little before my time.
So I had my epiphany in 2004, and prior to that, for 5 years, I had been, you know, getting in pretty tight with the whole cannabis scene here. I was one of the main volunteers for 420 and Cannabis Day and the Global Marijuana March and all the other events that happened cannabis related in that 5 years before I opened the herb school. So for all of that time, I'd been shoulder to shoulder hanging around with the cannabis community here in Vancouver, which is a pretty big and vibrant community. There was a lot of different places and people. And there was always stuff going on that I didn't understand. And there was like glimpses of things that didn't make much sense. And then I had my real vision, and I had to go across Canada and do the Freedom Tour. And one of the things I needed to do was connect with people across Canada because I was going to inline skate, you know, a lot of it. I was going to stay days and days in different towns and places. And I needed to connect with different activists and to make all that work. And so I kind of knew there was this thing, this Cannabis Culture Forum, but I'd never partaken. I wasn't a computer guy at all.
Right.
So I went on there and found all these topics that were being discussed and all these threads with all these comments and all these friends of mine that were making comments back and forth to each other and all the infighting and all the drama and all the holy shit.
Oh, Facebook now.
Exactly what Facebook is now, or probably more Instagram. But yeah, that was all going on, and there was probably a third or more of the community that wasn't involved in that wasn't into the whole computer thing yet. And so didn't really understand all these dramas and fighting that was going on in many cases. It wasn't all fighting, but there was a lot of fighting, and there was a lot of people having arguments with each other and falling out with each other. And it wasn't happening in person. It was happening on the forums because that's where people lose their brains, basically. They lose their ethics. They lose their their kindness and their patience and their facial expressions and the tones of voices that tell you that this person's only joking. Right. Or this person means this from the depths of love in their heart, you know. But instead, when you just print it out and you put it there, and the other person reads it through their filter, all of a sudden you just said something really horrible to them, and you meant them harm and ill, and no, that wasn't the intent. But things can be twisted so quickly. You can read the same, 6 words with intonations in different points and have like 5 different complete meanings to what you just said there. And when you just print it out in type, it's totally open to another person looking at that and putting the wrong tones in the wrong places and going, what are you talking about? And now they get you going, and and none of that should have happened. So that's what was going on back a
little more FaceTime, eh?
Yeah.
I love the voice part of Messenger.
Yeah, tone of voice is so important, really.
Yeah.
You know what you mean when you write stuff down, but sometimes you don't understand that other people could read that a different way completely based on where their point of view is and what they're looking for in what you're saying. Some people are looking for positive things in what people say, and some things are looking for negative things in what people say. And if you're looking for negative and it's just in print, it's pretty easy sometimes to think that was a negative statement when that wasn't the intention at all. So anyway, we all know about what's going on with the social media platforms. So, I don't know why I was talking about the Cannabis Culture Forums, but that was going on way back in the day, and there was that going on. I found out about it through that, and then ever since then, and then Facebook came along, and I was able to connect with a lot of people and do the trip. But you're right, and we did get a little sidetracked there. This government system of legalization has meant that if you want to get it for medical purposes, you have to get it through the LPs. You can also grow for yourself or have a designated grower. Both of which are fraught with problems because not everybody can grow for themselves. Depends on the building that you're in. Depends how sick you are. Depends on
if you own the building.
Lots of different things. Lots of different reasons. It's very difficult for people, or impossible for people to grow for themselves. You can get a designated grower, but it turned out to be a very difficult task. There's very few of them around. There's very few reputable, trustworthy ones. There's been a whole bunch shame on you people.
Yeah.
You know, but there's been a whole bunch of people ripped sick people off for their meds. That system is not regulated properly or controlled properly or whatever. And it doesn't need to be regulated and controlled like it is so much anyway. Oh my God. If it was easy to get, if there were stores to walk into, we wouldn't need to have designated growers and people in a position where they can get ripped off and other people can make a fortune off of other people's sickness and all the stuff that's been going on here. So the other system, of course, is that if you can't grow for yourself or it's not practical or you don't want to or whatever, you're too sick, and you can't get a designated grower because you can't get a doctor to find you one, and they don't anyway, and there are none, and you don't trust anybody, and so you can buy it off the government. That's the point. I'm rambling on for no reason. I'm not sure why. After the 420 session, I think. But yeah, you can buy it online through these licensed producers who are producing cannabis on massive scales for the most part, although the farmers co-op people are trying to get craft growers, small grows in. There are a few, but not many. Mostly it's great big huge grows that are happening. And all of that weed is being grown for the government stores and for the medical users. It's not like there's a real distinction between this strain of cannabis is for the medical user and this strain of cannabis is for the recreational stores. It ain't like that. They have a menu of strains available through the recreational stores that by the government's own description, and they're very careful to make sure that it's non-medical cannabis, which is a bit of a joke, although maybe if you alter it chemically and irradiate it and do a bunch of bad things to it, maybe it becomes non-medical, but pretty hard to have cannabinoids be non-medical when they supplement your endocannabinoid system. So those are your choices, and the government system for medical users to buy this cannabis that is not medical cannabis, not grown by people who are growing for a medical market, they're growing for the recreational market. They also supply the medical market. In many cases, you'll go in to get your medical cannabis or cannabis from the licensed producers for medical uses that you're going to use it for, and you'll go to the government store of non-medical cannabis to pick it up, and it's the same as what they've got there that they're saying is non-medical, and so this is your option.
Well, I don't know, a lot of it isn't definitely non-medical for sure.
Some of it, definitely some of it is non-medical. And I suspect some of it is probably medical. Like I suspect some of the cannabis that's... And I know there's some people in the medical or in the legal cannabis side of things that are saying, "Hey, there's good cannabis here."
Yeah, I've tried a little bit. That was okay, but 90% of what I've tried has not been good.
90% of what I've had reported to me has not been good.
Yeah.
And other than I say, there are some people that are in the industry that say, "Hey, there is good cannabis available here." Yeah. But I haven't tried any of it myself yet.
A lot of it's sometimes their fault. It's got to sit around for 2 years. It might have been good 2 years ago. Yeah.
They're not experts at curing.
Yeah.
I don't know that they even understand that.
Even over 2 years, how does anything stay cured? If it's just sitting in a bag on a shelf?
Well, no, not if it's just sitting in a bag on a shelf. It has to be...
the air in the bag's going to disintegrate it, right? Turn it to
although I did hear that there was the, I think it was Carol Gwilt's preliminary hearing or trial, and they had the VPD police expert get up and say that cannabis after 6 months is completely no good.
Yeah. Completely no good.
Completely no good. And I'm telling you, there's cannabis that's years old. Yeah. It's still very, very good.
Yeah, as long as it's stored properly.
It's been stored properly, looked after properly. Yeah. And and especially concentrates and things like that, they really last for a long time. Yeah. What a wonderful plant, eh? Yeah. What a wonderful plant. It's really such a shame that we've had to go through what we've had to go through to get all this. And it's not just cannabis. This is about nature. And there are aspects of nature that we have been lied to about and denied knowledge about for the last century to satisfy the protectionist needs of the pharmaceutical, now industrial complex. It started out with the Rockefellers and their partnership with Bayer Pharmaceutical from Germany, and taking over the North American market for medicine by synthesizing the active ingredients in many of the plants that had been used for all the time immemorial before that, and were available in botanical drugstores all across North America. There was a lot of drugstores.
Even the pharmaceuticals had, I think a third of it was cannabis based.
Well,
back in the day.
Back in the day when it was botanical drugstores, yes, it was absolutely 100%. And right up until the 30s, there was like lots of cannabis medicine, but then, all of a sudden cannabis turned into marijuana. Yeah. Marijuana turned into this dangerous drug coming up from Mexico.
Killing people.
Horrible. It was so horrible. So horrible.
Crazy people.
So horrible that in a free country, public servants had to act like under crisis conditions and stop this evil narcotic coming up from Mexico that was driving people completely insane. And so they put criminal sanctions on it. They made it one of the worst offenses. It became this like a fever pitch of going after people. William Randolph Hearst in his newspaper Empire talking about how cannabis was consumed before all the major, violent crimes that happened. Sensationalism.
It's unreal, eh?
And feeding a growing system of corruption where the courts were also now... lawyers knew that if they could say that their client had ingested some of that reefer, they weren't in their right mind, just like they did with alcohol.
They still do it now.
And they still do it now.
Yeah.
So, it all feeds the same thing.
Oh, they all do it. Yeah.
The banks are involved. You can't get insurance. You can't get a loan. It's hard to run a business. The city won't give you a license. They're all tied in together to maintain this attempt to force people to use what they want you to use. And it's all about profits for the big corporations that have the ear and the pocketbooks of our governments. Yeah, we talk about it every week, eh? But it's not just cannabis. The opioids, opium. I mean, we use poppies as a symbol for remembrance of the war because it was the painkiller that was used when the soldiers were dealing with amputations and serious injuries, and it saved a lot of people's lives, and it lessened a lot of pain.
The Macedonian flag has opium flag.
It's been medicine for a long time, and then it became demonized and prohibited, and coca as well. Used for centuries by people very successfully, much like people in North America use coffee and. Used, not in the form of cocaine and concentrates for the most part.
Coca tea there.
I see.
I remember when I got here.
And the big one for me, although there is also other psychedelics, but all of the psychedelics, I guess, but in particular mushrooms, which have been involved with cultures for a long, long time, and now, burgeoning evidence about the value of mushrooms with respect to PTSD, depression, anxiety, even pain, but obesity, stopping smoking, addiction. These are all such serious things in our environment and societies now. To be denied access to mushrooms, which grow in people's yards, is as ludicrous as could be.
Apparently they grow in city halls. Yeah.
City halls yard too, the public parks, they're everywhere. And yet here again, the same criminal sanctions have been used, although not often because it's not something they go after very much. But we'll see what happens now, because there's such a big push, and you've been a big part of that as well, to allow access to mushrooms, and especially in the form of microdosing. Although I think it should be up to individuals whether they want a micro or macro.
Yeah, that's what we're going to do in court, is address both. Yeah, for sure. It's freedom of thought, right? So.
With macrodosing, it's freedom of thought.
Yeah. Well,
I guess with microdosing it is too.
That's the whole point, yeah. It's changing
it is. But with microdosing, I mean, there's such a micro manipulation of thought. And in such positive ways.
That. It doesn't cause any hallucinations or visions or...
Compared to the macrodosing.
Yeah, compared to, for sure.
Compared to the macrodosing.
But I think over time it certainly would create a...
When I do a gram and a half of the albinos or the penis envies or whatever, I'm in quite a trance for 3 or 4 hours.
For sure.
It's definitely there's geometric shapes. There's colors.
There was a time
there's
you wouldn't eat
visions.
them about a year ago.
Well, there was a long period in my life where I wouldn't eat them because I ate them when I was a teenager and I ate too many one night. And I had an experience that I wasn't prepared for that just scared me a little bit. And so, I didn't want to do them for a long time. And then it was the Freedom Tour that took me to Shambhala. Freedom Tour changed my life in so many ways. Such amazing trips. One of these days we're going to talk about that. But it took me to Shambhala, where my son was there, and he convinced me to do some mushrooms, and we had just a great night. Laughing and talking and partying. And so from that point on, I'm no longer worried about them in any way. But I did recognize that it's a trip. It's 3 or 4 hours. And it's, rather intense, depending. And in a positive way or a negative way, depending on your scene and setting and all the rest of that. But there's some potential for intensity there. And I just lived such a life for so many years where every day was active, important things to do, right into the evenings. Seldom ever felt I had the opportunity to do it. Just maybe I was making excuses to not do it, I don't know. But just really didn't. So from that time at Shambhala up until 3 months ago, there's still just a handful of times. I did it again at Shambhala a few times. I did it at a memorial or a celebration of life party we had for Guppy. That was a lot of fun.
You did them in the middle of the night when I gave you those chocolates?
In the middle of the night, I ate one by mistake. That was a wild trip. But I have done more mushrooms in the last 3 months than I've done in my entire life for sure. Now I'm doing them about about 3 or 4 nights a week. I'll do between 3/4 of a gram and 1.5 grams. I'm not into heroic doses of 5 or 7 grams yet. Or like a good friend of ours, I guess I won't mention him because he's a lawyer, but he did 13 grams and had to wait the night or two. But and I think it's really helping. It's been helping with my state of mind, with my memory, with my headaches that I was having, and I still do get a bit of headache depending. But I find that I felt a little bit of a headache coming on last night, and I did 0.95 of albinos, and no sign of a headache within about an hour of that. I was definitely right involved in a good mushroom trip. No feeling at all of a headache coming on, and I woke up this morning feeling fine. So I'm getting to trust them a little more as relief for those situations, and sometimes that's brought on by smoking a little too much cannabinoids, because I kind of live in this industry, but mostly because of stress. That's what gets me. I have an issue with stress, I find, as I'm getting older, and as more and more things are happening, like the state of the world right now is very stressful. I've just lost another good friend, Corey Seeger, One Eye, a good friend from Occupy, a really good guy. I don't know why. Young guy. We just found out landlord had been talking to him on Friday. He said he had a sore arm. Whether that was connected to anything, I don't know. But just a young guy gone way too soon. And that's one of many. I've lost so many friends to different things. We lost Greg Williams to a brain tumor just this last January, and Jason to a heart attack. My good friend Sheldon to an overdose of fentanyl. My goodness. And Colleen to old age, I guess. And I've just lost a lot of friends, and there's been no closure, is what I find as well, right? We haven't been able to have gatherings. There was just a few of us that managed to get together at the funeral home for Greg Williams, and stand apart from each other, and kind of, how are you doing? And not allowed to go into the funeral home, just out in the parking lot and kind of drizzle. But for Jason, there's been nothing. For most of my passing friends, there's been no, and really you need some closure with each and every one of your loved ones that goes. So it's been stressful. This whole battle for our license is so ludicrous at this point. I'm being, it's like I mentioned, I think you heard me at least say that when 9/11 happened, it was a big shock. I think a lot of us felt that, right? That we had been betrayed by humanity somehow. That all of a sudden our faith in humanity had been somehow crushed, that people could actually plan to purposely kill innocent people smashing into the side of a building and on a nice sunny day in New York where everybody's just going about their business. Like, it just, for me, it just shattered my belief about the goodness of humans at that moment for me. And this fight to, and it shouldn't be a fight. It shouldn't be a fight. We shouldn't be fighting. Like, every day I have to spend my time thinking about who I can call, who I can email, what I can say, how I can get the media to pay attention, because they don't and they won't. Finding out more about the corruption and it's a deep dive that I've been going on for a long time here into what's going on. What's the mechanism of this horrible attempt to prohibit cannabis and these other psychedelic medicines and the plant medicines. And it just is so disheartening that there's that much evil and greed in the world that they would be willing to sacrifice people's children to opioid addiction and suffering and withhold from them an escape through cannabis, which is an escape, and that's what we're going to get to next, is the way that cannabis helps people escape from this horrible situation of so many of our society addicted, stuck, not able to get through withdrawal, not able to get off of these opioids that were purposely overprescribed and flooded into our society to fuel a need for greed and to satisfy the rich who can seemingly never be satisfied because they're making trillions of dollars.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, it's got to be trillions. That's a big number. Yeah. Like, holy shit. The pharmaceutical industry, the profits, holy shit. And now we find out the treatment industry. You weren't here last week. Did I talk to you at all about the body brokers?
No, you didn't, but I've seen it.
You've seen the movie?
Yeah.
So you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
This, what I thought was another shock to my system.
Yeah,
another reason for stress.
Yeah, it's no shock to me.
I guess I should have known better. I mean, I guess I figured there might have been some corruption involved. I figured with the celebrities, those, super high prices that they charge for rehab, that's got to be a bit of a scam.
Some of the world's most expensive rehab. It's like, it's like $150 a week or something.
150,000.
Yeah.
So on the bottom end, in case you missed last week, in case you don't know, you really got to go to YouTube and watch Body Brokers. It'll fill you in on what's going on. This horrible epidemic of people dying from tainted drug supply and being addicted to opioids, driven by a pharmaceutical industry through the medical profession, flooding the marketplace with that's the go-to for anybody that's in pain or always opioids, and now you're addicted and now you're on the streets and all the rest of that. All of that is being taken advantage of by a bunch of shysters because governments have said, oh, well, we've got to do something about this crisis. Yeah. They're probably in on it right from the beginning, aren't they? We got to do something about this. Yeah. People are pushing us to do something about this. The families, they're crying. We're going to lose votes if we don't do something about this. So here's what we're going to do. And they made it a law that they would pay for rehab. For people that couldn't afford it, that didn't have insurance, that they would pay for rehab. So the government is now funding a whole bunch of rehab treatment centers where the costs are not $150,000 a week. They're $2,000 a day. Yeah. That's still a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
That's a lot of money. And that's just for the first 30 days. And if you can keep that person there for another 30 days, the amount of money per day that you get per person goes up. And then if you can get them right to the end of your 90-day program, that last 30 days, you make a real buck on keeping them there that long, to the point where they're giving them kickbacks at the end. Yeah. They'll give them a couple $1,000s once they're done. And of course, they don't have a job to go back to because now they've been in treatment for 90 days. They don't have probably housing to go back to because how do you can't afford your housing?
Go get hired
They've been found by these body brokers down and out in places like the downtown east side, suffering and struggling and wishing they could get off these drugs, and they're approached and a nice stranger, hey man, I can help you if you really want off, and it won't cost you, just cost you time, and you gotta want to do it. And then they'll fly them this is a movie based in the United States. This is a situation that's primarily in the United States, but it's up here in Canada too. But this one focuses on California, where it's a $12 billion a year industry, the treatment industry.
Wow.
One treatment center that they focus on builds $72 million in 1 year for treating people. And they need to keep these beds full of people. They need to keep people coming in. They have a very low success rate. It's about 10%. They don't mind that. It's kind of the thing. They let people know it's probably going to take you 6-7 times of going through, It's okay, because if you don't have insurance, then the government will pay. If you have insurance, then they pay 3/4, government pays
$2.5 million and $1 million per person.
It's incredible. It's incredible. And then so they don't have a place to go when they get out. So the treatment centers, they set up halfway houses. And in many cases, the halfway houses are just places where they're going to get back with the other addicts. The halfway houses are making money. They get that $2,000 back that they gave them once they got out of rehab.
Yeah, 10 rooms in a house. You got $20K a month worth of drugs being sold.
It's insane. It's insane. And it is so tragic. And for me, it is so stressing me out that there's evil, greedy people that are willing to just make buck off of people suffering. And it's just sick. It's sick, man. It is sick. And so, yeah. And I think that, I should let you cover a little more. Where are you at with your psychedelics project? Like you said, Freedom of Thought Project.
Yeah.
The government is prohibiting psychedelic drugs, not because it causes harm to people in the form of putting them into hospital and there's, a cost to society for medical bills. There's nobody, not lots of people dying from psychedelics, if hardly any at all. It's drastically lower than alcohol, cigarettes, pharmaceutical drugs, white refined sugar, so many other things kill people at much, much higher rates than do psychedelics. But this whole war against psychedelics is all about thought. Isn't that stupid? Wrap your brain around that. That's all they're trying to prevent is you thinking different than you're thinking. And if you're thinking in a way that you don't like to think, like if you can't get your brain off of stuff that's bugging you, and a little trip on some mushrooms could help you with that, well, who the hell is your public servant to make you a criminal and prevent you from doing that? And why would they even do that? Like, holy smokes. If it doesn't work for you, don't do them again. It's okay. You'll make it through the night. Don't like doing mushrooms. It's not my thing. Don't do them again. It's up to you. But to not let you do them when they could be helping you, and the only thing they're going to do is help you change your frame of mind? This is all about mind control. This whole psychedelic prohibition attempt, cannabis included, is all about jailing up your thoughts, not allowing you to smoke a reefer or pop a mushroom cap and think a little bit about your life, about what's worth being depressed about where the pain came from, or whatever it is. But it can get you there. It can help you fix yourself. Cannabis won't fix you. Mushrooms won't fix you. But they can help you fix yourself. These substances can get you into a frame of mind where you can have some realizations. You can understand some things you didn't think about before. And that's what they're trying to prevent. And that's what they are preventing. And it's horrible. Because we have a world full of people suffering PTSD. The soldiers, my God. Good human beings willing to go and put their body on the line for future generations and for the people back home, or whatever their motivation is. You go to war to fight for freedom and fight against some oppressor, and you come back and you're all stressed out because you watched your buddies die, or you realized it was corrupt, or for whatever reason you're in PTSD now you're post-traumatic syndrome here of being stressed out all the time, and what, you can't use some cannabis to help you feel better? You can't take a little mushroom trip to help you maybe deal a little bit with what happened to you? Like, it's all so corrupt and so wrong and so downright evil that there are forces out there working hard, using our money
you don't feel any good at all.
to keep us from feeling good. Holy crap, people. Like, seriously? I hope everybody gets as upset as I do about it. Like, really? I mean, I know we can't do much about it. We can do some things. We can all do a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
You know, one person can only do so much, but I'm amazed at what single people do sometimes. You know, you look at the track record of a lot of people. A lot of my friends and colleagues have, you know, accomplished a lot. I think of Dana Larson and, you know, all the fantastic editing he did of Cannabis Culture magazine and all the amazing projects he's put together and all of his efforts to make sure that 420 and Cannabis Day was a success. And now he's got the Coca Cafe and all these other things that he's done. And there's so many. I mean, the dispensary, you know, busy guy. He's done a lot, but it hasn't been enough. You know, it didn't get it done. And he's not alone, so it's not just Dana that didn't do enough. It's none of us have done enough. And there's a whole whack of us that have done a lot. So, you know, obviously it's not a one-person effort. It's not going to take one person to overturn this. It's going to take a whole bunch of us. And a whole bunch of us happens when an individual says, I'm going to do something. You know, I'm going to do something. I can do something. You know, you got a little bit of time left in your life. You got a little bit of time to do stuff. You got resources of some sort. You got skills. You got connections. You got something. Have some fun making the world a better place. There's no better thing to do, really. Well, sure there's sex and playland and, you know, the beach.
Psychedelics.
There's lots of things. But, well, I think psychedelics is making the world a better place. I think if you make yourself a better person and you know, try to improve yourself, I think you're trying to improve the whole world.
For sure.
And you never know what can happen when somebody helps themselves and when you help somebody help themselves. You know, they said that about a doctor never knows what he might have just done there by saving a person's life or giving him a few more years. Because
many people, a doctor over here before I came here. I just got a space over here.
You know, other than being corrupted by the pharmaceutical industry, being a doctor, you know, is probably a pretty cool thing to be. You know, when people come to you and they're hurting, and you understand it better than they do, and you've got answers for them, and you can help them, and they do in most cases provide some benefit. So it must be pretty cool to be a doctor.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And it's pretty cool to help the world in lots of different ways, you know. And here's one that's been going on for a long time, and here's how you know that we need your help, is because it is so ridiculously wrong. It is so obviously ridiculously wrong that they will take massive amounts of our money, our tax dollars, and use that to prevent us from just accessing nature in ways that will help in huge ways with the overdose crisis, with people's depression and pain and all the rest of it. It's so obviously, blatantly wrong, and yet if they're still getting away with it and continuing it, then we need help. Like, we need a lot of people to get on board with this and get this thing turned around. Because if they can make this plant that will help insomniacs and help pain patients and, you know, help people get off of opioids and give you a better life, and they can make you a criminal and all the rest of that, then we're so far from free that we got to get out of this now, because we're in the world of drones. That's the end of privacy. Yeah. That's the end of security. If we don't have public servants that are protecting the public, then we are going to be nothing but chattel and to be exploited, because the fly on the wall could be a drone at this point. The ability to survey us, and they even admit freely that we're being surveyed, and we know they're collecting data on us that gives them information as they, not only us, but our friends. I mean, I was reading a thing the other day where a guy exposed just how it works. What did he say? He went to his mother's in the country and used her toothpaste while he was there, but then comes back and he's got ads for her toothpaste on his social media. Now, he never talked about toothpaste in any way, shape, or form with his mother or anything like that. So the guy explained, well, here's how it happens. They know your location. They know where you go. They know who you're seeing. They know who you're with. So they know who your friends are. They know what your patterns are, your family is. They know the patterns of those people. They know the mother uses this toothpaste. So they just assume that, you know, you might as well. And that's how insidious it is. They're getting to all of us through our friends and through all the data that they're collecting on everybody.
Yeah, that's crazy, eh?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a list one time of a little glimpse into what they had on me with all of my different choices with respect to social media and whatever it was, the Google track. I saw some of the Google tracking on myself, and I was just shocked.
Yeah,
it's like dozens and dozens of things every day.
I know.
that are on there that I never suspected would be on there.
You can't park your car anymore. You park here.
You make a comment on a thread on Facebook somewhere, and that's there.
Yeah.
They got it all.
Yeah.
And then they got algorithms and computers to analyze all that shit and find all of your patterns.
Yeah.
You know, they say that if you want to conquer somebody, know more about them than they know about themselves. And we are definitely being conquered. We are being manipulated. We are being trained to be obedient, trained to think certain ways. And man, we're up against a very, very sophisticated army of understanding against us for sure. So let's just have as much fun as we can and do the best that we can and find what we can do, because as creative human beings with a whole lot of skill and insight and a lot of experience, and as a collective, that's what we have. If we put it all together, man, we can do this. We could reset democracy. We could end prohibitions. We could do these things, and we just need enough people to
I met with a new lab today.
A new lab.
Yeah, another one.
And so what are they going to do?
They're an analytics company.
Okay.
So I might buy part of
So
that.
what are they analyzing? Are they analyzing the effects of these
No,
things?
it's just for, they actually have a Health Canada license just for testing cannabis.
Oh, I see.
Cannabis at this time.
So
But they've already got a license. So yeah, the security clearance is already done, so it'll be easier to apply for a dealer's license if someone's already got a license. So the other one's going a little slow, so they're both still open, but just looking at other options. So
right. And that's a process like everything else,
Yeah.
right? You can't see the end or know the steps to get there until you start the journey
keep
and
coming,
see where
though.
your path goes. Yeah.
Yeah.
You find out in the morning, that's what I'm doing today?
yes, I
You know?
just met Dr. Liang or something that owns a building just like a block over here.
Right.
A couple blocks over.
And he wants to help you with
Yeah,
what
we
you do.
needs revenue in there, and he's psychedelics friendly, and he's
And revenue's okay. There is money to be made in cannabis. There's money to be made in psychedelics and in mushrooms and all of that.
it's more space for doing like conferences and fundraisers and things like that. So,
I would like to see, and actually Rob Laurie said that this would be another good front for us to endeavor down, and then maybe this would be of interest to you as well. Probably it is. Have like he envisioned a bus. I envision a warehouse or a place where you would go and you could have a nice setting set up, but really it's about putting people into comfy chairs with blindfolds and headphones and a particular dose of psychedelics, and have trained clinicians that have been certified.
I got a better design.
And
I thought of this one. Yeah,
okay.
I want to do. Maybe I shouldn't say it.
Don't say. Because that'll spark some creativity.
Yeah, that's okay.
You can tell us later.
I think that one therapist is having a therapist for each one. Is you could have just pods that are soundproof with headphones, and so that he can monitor several at one time.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, just another variation of what they're talking
about.
about.
Prison guard. Just checking out. Like really, it's the same.
Right.
Same,
and
you know what I mean? They only one per so many.
There would be, depending on what the ratio of dose was, or
clearly
the type of clientele was.
Yeah.
There would
just
be
a more effective way than doing one per session.
Exactly.
Right?
Effectiveness.
Because the majority of the time, it's in our experience anyway. So you're not so
you're always just trying to be as efficient as possible.
You're basically monitoring them, right? So.
Right, because there can be problems arise, or there can be questions.
Yeah.
There can be guidance required. There can be lots of these different things. So you'd want to have some sort of a trained clinician to deal with that.
Yeah.
And so it's another interesting avenue of pursuit.
Yeah.
Of course, the laws don't allow for that at this point, but we're doing a bunch of other things that the laws don't allow for either. That the law lags behind, right? It lagged behind insight. It's lagging behind on prohibition. That's for damn sure. And it's going to lag behind on these other fields of human consciousness and freedom of thought as well, and the way we get her done is by doing it. We don't comply. We say, hey, this is the right thing to do. This is the right way to do it. Help us, don't hurt us, and maybe eventually, right? I think we have made a lot of progress over the decades. We have fallen back in a little ways too. Legalization is a bit of a setback, maybe, but maybe it's also a step that we just need to take advantage of and shift the right way. Certainly the genie's out of the bag. There's going to be cannabis available for the foreseeable future, at least through government stores, and that's not going to stop.
Or the black market.
Well, and of course, and if it was to stop with the government stores, it would continue on with the black market. So we'll just continue to make some headway, and anything people can do, check you out.
Yeah, mindtech.ca, microdelics.ca.
All right, and your court case, 6th to the 16th of November.
Yeah.
Some final stuff going on there, and then a decision.
Hopefully, it's the way it goes.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm an optimist, so don't bet on me. I think within a month, lawyers who know much more than I do speculate maybe into the spring before a decision happens. I don't know. But I'll tell you, I shouldn't have so much optimism. I'm just basing it on the tone of the judge and how she said she was going to try to get up to speed, close to being able to understand everything even before the final submissions, and that she would try to return a decision in a timely manner. But I'm going to now tell you about why I also don't have much faith for that. So you're free to go, sir, if you like. You can stay if you want as well. I'm going to do a recap on the CSP, and thank you so much for coming in and bringing us up to date again.
Krispy Kreme donut bread.
Oh dear, the real hard drugs have arrived. Krispy Kreme donut. If anything should be illegal. My goodness, those things are addictive. And with the prevalence of type 2 diabetes in our world, and all the problems with that, and the implications that are there with respect to the overconsumption of white refined sugar products and Krispy Kreme donuts, you don't get much more refined sugar than that. Could be really be up there with something that should be highly regulated, just due to the actual problems that have arisen with respect to those things. And the regulation that should be there is not prohibition by any means. It should be education. The government should do a better job of making sure people have a better understanding of the preciousness of our body, the vulnerability of our bodies, and how much we need to take care of ourselves to be less of a burden on society's healthcare systems, and to have a better life for ourselves and our families. And so they don't do a very good job of telling us the truth about some of the real dangerous things in our society, and they do a really horrible job by taking our money and so much of it and using it to try to force us into using those harmful substances and not using much better things for ourselves, like plant medicines, psychedelics, cannabis, and those sorts of things. So the reason that I don't have a lot of faith sometimes in what judges say is because we applied for a license to be able to continue the work that we had been doing from a storefront for 5 months, where we had been providing low barrier access to cannabinoids in all of its different forms to people here on the downtown east side, with a project that we'd been operating for 3.5 years up until that time when we started the store, where we were just giving it away in the form of care packs to people twice a week at Vandu. Hundreds of people twice a week getting 4 to 6 high-dose edibles, all in the spirit of helping them have an option to the hard street drugs that were killing people and causing so much trouble. So 3.5 years of doing that resulted in studies being done because, we had long lineups of people that were getting these cannabis handouts, and they were reporting to their doctors in many cases the benefits of that. There was enough of a buzz about that a UBC professor, Dr. M.J. Malloy, came and studied the effects of our program. Other programs around the continent were also undertaken, and there was other studies done, and it was concluded quite convincingly that cannabis is effective for helping people with all of the drivers of opioid addiction and hard drug addiction, and with getting through withdrawal, and with and substituting the use of, not so much in the case of cannabis with the smoked version of cannabis, but with the high-dose edibles, a person could get to a level and attain a level of medication from that would rival the opioids and the hard drugs. And so that's why it works. And we proved that it works. That also resulted in 2.5 years into the project, having the City of Vancouver pass unanimously a motion to support low barrier access to cannabis based on what we were doing and another group called the High Hope Society, what they were doing in providing cannabis as an option for opioid users. And so we met with the city and said that we would find a storefront and move our program indoors, and that they would come and assess us, and if they approved, they would license us and support us. And so after a time, we found this storefront here that we're in, although it's not being operated as a storefront now, because that's the story. The story is that rather than have the City of Vancouver support us here, the licensing department, unaware of the motion that the councillors had even passed, decided that they would threaten our landlord and threaten us, and we ended up being evicted. But prior to the eviction, and here's where it ties into my faith in a judge saying they will do things in a timely fashion, prior to the eviction, we put in an application to Health Canada and to the federal health minister for an emergency temporary exemption from the Cannabis Act to allow us to continue what we were doing here and be licensed by the city, because that's what they would require, and also an application for long-term licenses of us, our staff, and our suppliers, and done very well, put together by John Conroy, and with the consultation with Jack Lloyd and with myself. And so we applied over a year ago now. Over a year. And when we applied, we were told that they would try to process that in a timely fashion. So if a timely fashion is over a year and still counting, then maybe I shouldn't have much faith that Jerry Martin's case is going to be decided upon anytime soon. Also, in the eviction proceedings, where we presented to the presiding judge that we would just like an adjournment for 6 months to get Health Canada to give us the licenses that we'd applied for, that judge said he had no faith that we would get those licenses within 6 months. I thought that was absurd. Turns out he was right. So here we are. What happened was we got evicted from this storefront after 5 months. We had been serving, and in fact we took the lineup of people that we'd been serving on the street at Vandu and made members out of them and gave them numbers and brought them into a program where instead of twice a week lining up and getting a care pack, they would come in every 4 days and get 420 milligrams of their choosing of the high-dose edibles in the variety that we would have. And so that was going on. And here the judge gives us 7 days to get out, unable to get back onto the sidewalk and do it, unwilling to do that due to circumstances that I could go into, but I won't. Decided instead to just rent an RV. We'd had this location for 5 months. People knew where to find us. We needed to make it easy for them to continue to find us. So we parked the RV right out front, and that's where we've been ever since. We're getting really close to being a year now in the RV, which is also completely ludicrous. We can't be inside the building doing what it is that we're doing from the RV. We have a standoff going on with the VPD. They're tolerating us while they obviously wait for Health Canada as well after initially raiding us 2 weeks into being in the RV. But since then, allowing us basically to continue on helping people, wondering what Health Canada is going to do like we are. But, you know, for just about a year now, we've been in an RV providing high-dose edibles, putting out over 12,000 milligrams of high-dose edibles every day against the Cannabis Act. 1 block away from the police station, half a block away from the courthouse. And we wait, and we wait. But that's where we are, that's what we're doing. We'll continue to update every week about our situation as we continue our quest for a low barrier access cannabis store. And in the meantime, we'll go out and see what the RV looks like and say hello to the crew out there like we always do. And come on with me. is not a nice sunny day in Vancouver anymore. Into our regular fall weather. So here's the Ganja Mobile, the CSP van, the Healing Wave RV that we've been calling home now for almost a year. Hey Jen. I like to take this time usually during the show to mention that, you know, the CSP in Vancouver is not operating alone by any means. There was another CSP branch that started within 6 months of us, so they've been operating for over 4 years now on Vancouver Island in Victoria with the Solid group over there. It's been just about 2 years now that Chris Backer in Halifax, Nova Scotia started the CSP East Coast over there. They've been giving out care packs every Monday. They had another successful Monday just yesterday. I can't thank those people enough for what they're doing there, and the people that are helping Chris and the good work that he's doing. He mentioned, you know, someone took him out of the lineup to mention how well it had helped them. You know, they didn't say anything. They get their care pack and they go away, and you never know how much good you just did for somebody by doing that. And you know, maybe sometimes it's negligible, but other times it's profound. And this one person took Chris aside and wanted to tell him that he's on a methadone program, and he comes every week and he gets his bag of edibles, but you know, he didn't really think much of it and didn't really understand the good that it was going to do him until he didn't get his methadone on time, and he was going to have to go through the night without it. And he had done that before, and it wasn't something that was very pleasant at all. But there he had his bag of edibles, so he dove into that and how much it helped him. He needed to express to Chris just how much it helped him, and it took the edge off, and it allowed him to get through the night. And it's something that so many people have found that it does that for them. And that's kind of what we're doing here, is trying to put enough cannabis into the hands of the people here that are in trouble and could use it, and get them used to it and get them trying it and get them finding out that it is something very valuable to them. So we never know in this program just how much good that we're doing by doing this. But Chris got a little glimpse into that, and we get some glimpses into that here as well. And as well as Chris in Halifax, there's Mary McCarty in London, Ontario. She was our head baker here with the CSP for quite a while. Had to go back to Ontario, and she took the program there. She's in her 6th month now. Had 200 people today giving out care packs. It was a long lineup. I saw the video of it, and it looked a lot like what we had going on at Van Du. It's a very similar situation, and it just warms my heart to see these things going on. And there's Jason LaFasse, and there's Taylor Ward, and there's other people, other places that are doing similar things, and the program is growing and expanding, and it needs to be all over the place, and the government needs to support what we're doing here. It is extremely important. Just on a side note, our Facebook group page is still down. We've now created a second one as a backup, but Facebook decided that we were contravening their community standards by breaking the law, I guess, although cannabis is legal in Canada, you would think, and we're here trying to save people's lives and get them off of addiction, and I don't know how that would go against anybody's standards. I'm not sure what their standards would be if that's contrary to them. So if you could contact Facebook on behalf of the Cannabis Substitution Project and tell them that we're a good group of people just trying to make the world a better place, and we should be part of what is considered high standards, that would be really awesome. We don't know how to get our group page back, but you know, we could probably use some help on that. We have appealed to Facebook, but maybe if more people did that, it would help us as well. So thanks for that. And so here we are. This is our RV. This has been home for, we're going into our 2nd winter coming up by the looks of it. We just went through a really hot summer, but now we're back to the propane heater again, and it's wet and rainy here for the people that have to access through the window. But that's the way it is. When we got raided, they made us take the tent down and kind of threatened us about the tent and signs that we had. So we've been maintaining, but trying to keep a little bit of a low profile by at least not poking the bear with signs and the tent. But it does mean that the people that come here have to stand in the rain and the cold, and they just went through the heat doing that. And we could be in a nice air-conditioned or warm store, but our public servants are still not deciding that they're going to allow us to do what is proven to be so successful. And Jen Nelson is our #1 person at the window here. How successful is our program, Jen?
Pretty good.
Pretty good?
Helping a lot of people.
Yeah, you've seen a lot of that over the years.
I have, yeah. especially at the window as well, right? 'Cause, like, we gave up on the wait list.
Yeah,
There's hundreds of people, and we had no idea when we'd be able to add anybody to it, so we stopped adding anybody to it.
Well, we've added a few, but not many.
I know we don't
not
even know
recently.
where the wait list is now.
Well, we don't add to the wait list, but we have added a few to the program. We don't add to the wait list. The wait list got
That's
ridiculous.
what I said.
I'm sorry. You're right and I'm wrong. As always. As always. But you're right. I mean, at Van Duke, we didn't get a lot of time with the people. You know, we were busy putting the care packs together. They were standing in a line out front.
They got to hang out more with
and
each
then they'd
other.
come in and we'd have to, as quickly as we could, we'd have to give them their care packs. You know, many times the weather wasn't good, or even when it was, they'd been standing for so long. But here, they don't wait in a lineup.
Sometimes they do, but nowhere near as long.
Oh, yeah. It's
Never
not,
for an hour.
No.
Never
It's never
for an
10 minutes. I mean, 10 minutes would be, you know, almost unheard of now. So they get to come to the window and they get to tell us things, and we get to listen to them, and we get to hear their stories and get to know them a lot better.
And a lot of the people need that. Like, they need to be able to vent for a few minutes, or tell us when something great happens in their lives, or when something horrible happens, you know? Like,
we hear it all.
oh yeah. All kinds of good and the bad.
All kinds of good and bad, but probably more good than bad at the window.
Yes.
You know, people are pretty thankful.
People come back to tell us how well like an edible works for them.
Yeah.
You know, John's little muffins, or we have somebody making us chocolates now. And those
You had somebody come back and give you $5 that they kind of owed you, but you weren't expecting it back.
Yeah.
And then what else did they do?
They gave me an extra $5.
An extra $5.
And they felt bad that they didn't come back and pay me, but they said they would. You know,
So,
they
yeah.
were still broke. I was like, that's okay, because he needed tears really badly.
Right.
They really help him, and those help a lot of people.
They help a lot of people.
And those are definitely one of the most important things we have here.
Absolutely.
It's a really good bang for your buck. You get 1,000 milligrams in there. I won't say a price on here just in case.
Yeah. It's as low as we can make it.
Yeah.
We don't make much money on those, and then you know, that's the point. Because the people that are in need of those are very sick people in most cases. It really profoundly helps.
And that's why he gave me the extra couple
them. And
bucks.
a lot of people come and
He was so
apologize.
grateful for me doing
They apologize for being broke.
Yeah, I know. It breaks my heart. Like, or if people come and apologize for only having $1 to get a joint, I'm like, don't feel bad for that. That's why we have something that cheap, so that everybody can afford something.
And if they can't afford nothing, they get a joint. and we give out how many joints every day from the window here?
Probably at least 20, maybe a little bit more, depending on the day.
And then we give out the cupcakes, and then Michael the Cookie Monster's cookies. So John Murray's
The
cupcakes.
chocolates now when we have them too. We have a selection.
Fraser Valley is coming up with chocolate.
I don't know if he wants to
Fraser
name on
Valley is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if he wants to name on there.
It's not his name. That's the point.
Oh,
That's
but
why
he
I
goes
said
by.
that. And so if you think you got his name, you didn't get his name. We live right beside the Fraser Valley, so
Sure.
yeah. But exactly. So anyway, yeah, and we're gonna go see Andrew at the back there before I drown, and then we'll come back in. One thing we do get to. Well, not with your mask on.
Okay, I'll definitely move it down.
How you doing, Rich?
I'm doing well, Neil. I just want to tell everybody out there that these people, I'm very surprised to learn, they're helping every person of every class in society help get off opiates and get onto something a little bit more sustainable like medical marijuana and marijuana products and whatnot. And after getting to know everybody here and what their mission is and whatnot, I think these people are saints. They're doing the Lord's work, and I honestly hope that the rest of you people out there will come down and support them, because you're only paying half the price you'd pay in a normal dispensary, and your money that you're spending is going for the better good of all of Vancouver and a higher quality of life. It's a win-win situation, people. Come on down and support these people.
And that which you're going to pay probably half of what you'd pay elsewhere for
Exactly.
is not lower quality.
No.
We have some fantastic suppliers that care about us and are willing to help us, and we keep the prices down because of that. So the $12 gram you're going to find in another dispensary is not going to be any higher than $6 here, and it's probably going to be even a little bit better because our growers really do care.
Yeah, it's incredulous. It's incredulous. What a good service for our community.
Well, we just need to get a license. Just a piece of paper with a signature on it.
I sure hope your thing comes soon. I hope that they get it because it'll be much more comfortable in a store environment than this.
Well, and that's the thing, right? We're not providing a very safe space for people to come and access here. We need to have a storefront that people can feel safe to come into and can protect them from weather like this. I mean, this is no fun, so... Unless you're a duck.
That's
well, thank you very much for saying that. I appreciate that a lot. You've been...
not a problem. I mean, you're good people doing the Lord's work as far as I'm concerned.
Thanks, Butch. Appreciate
Have
that.
a good day, guys.
Yeah. And there he is.
We're here again,
How you
another
doing, Andrew?
episode. We're here again in the rain.
Another week back here in the RV still, you know?
But does the rain deteriorate people? No, I've had 30 members come here today to get 420.
Wow, it's
the
been
rain
a
doesn't
pretty busy
matter.
day then.
If you live in Vancouver, then this is your weather.
Yeah,
Right. They need.
you got to expect rain
they
in
need their
Vancouver.
medicine.
It's true.
If you need your medicine, you will come in the rain to get your medicine because it's what they need.
Yeah.
Right?
So what do we got today on the menu?
They have a menu.
This is where people come and access the CSP. The back door is the CSP door, and if you've got a membership here, you can come, and every 4 days you can pick 420 milligrams, and here's some of the stuff that we have that you can pick from.
I have some marijuana leaves right here. They're 20 milligrams each, and there's 5 in a package, so that makes 100 milligrams. I have gummy bears. There's 20 in there at 5 milligrams each, because some people I have that like low dose. So that's 100 milligrams right there at 5 milligrams each, and that's pretty good.
Yep.
That's very good. I have...
That's Green Wilderness stuff.
Yep. I have some here.
That's Carly Thiessen.
That's 250 milligrams of THC, right?
Beautiful.
In this package. So people like high dose, right?
Yeah.
I have some cubes right here.
More Green Wilderness.
Yep, Green Wilderness. I have some cubes right here. Here's 200 milligrams at 50 milligrams each.
Such a reputable company, Green Wilderness. They've been helping us since the early days at the CSP. Yeah. And with edibles, it's hit and miss sometimes. Some companies' edibles are strong and some aren't. But with Green Wilderness, they've really been proven to work very, very well. A lot of people love those. They're very effective.
They've been really good, excellent donators for us. I have some cookies here. These are Robert's cookies. These are double chocolate ones, right here, and I also have peanut chocolate chip right here, 100 milligrams each cookie. Right. You stepped up from 80 milligrams to 100 milligrams. I have some brownies here, 80 milligram brownies, very reliable.
That's Roberta.
Everybody loves the brownies. I've gone through 2 bags today. It's my 3rd bag.
The old school edible.
Yep.
Brownies is what it all started with, pot brownies, and people still love them, and they're still a great one. And you got...
and we have some of these.
All right.
We don't have any black cherry. It's inside, but we have... and the black cherry is 40 indica and 40 CBD, half and half.
Right.
Same with the mango. It's a half and half sativa. The black cherry is a half and half indica. This raspberry is full indica. And this one here is CBD, and I've had a lot more people asking for CBD, and they've been getting CBD.
And these are from Gorilla Ganja, and talk about a company whose products are consistently strong and do what they're supposed to do. That's another one that has a really reputable product.
These are popular, but these are all of them together are very good for people that have pain.
Yeah.
They say that these Gorilla Ganjas work great.
Yeah.
Right? That's good to know, right? Now, I have some pills here. I have some 50 milligram pills.
Right. You got the caps.
These are 50 milligram pills.
That's Dirty Dave.
Yeah. Dirty Dave's been good for us for lots of times. So I have some people who like Keef pills. I have some Keef in these pills. These are 50 milligrams. I have some pills over here and they're 5 milligrams each for the people.
Those are the ones that we put together ourselves from our friend Brian. Thank you so much, Brian. You know who you are.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. I have tinctures for people. I have some honey. People love honey. Right? And then I have some hemp oil, at 1,500 milligrams. Heavy dose. I have some snake oil. People love it. It's pretty good. What do we have? We have some, this is a 1-to-1. This is 250 milligrams of CBD. This is 250 milligrams of THC, 1-to-1. It's very good for people. It's very nice. What else do we have? We have, that's about it.
Good stuff, Andrew. I appreciate that a lot. That's awesome. And
hang on, I got one more round.
oh, you got one more thing to show
I
us?
have to thank.
Mary for her topical, I'll bet you.
No, I also wanted, we saw the video today with Mary. I think Mary's great, and she's doing an awesome job.
She is, yeah.
Mary. She's a go-getter. It was my birthday on the 29th of September.
Yeah.
Robert made me a cake, a small cake.
Right.
Now that's one of our bakers, and he's great. This has 25,000 milligrams inside.
Wow.
Now, you see the quality there. That's what that's Robert. He's great. He makes the cookies for us, right? He does the caramels for us, the cookies and everything. That's great.
Yeah.
See? That's the passion we got right here.
Yeah.
This is passion.
Don't eat it all at once.
No. Thanks, guys.
All right, we'll see you on the other side. So one thing we're doing here is we're demonstrating every day the safety of cannabis, not just the effectiveness, but the safety of cannabis. These are extremely high dose edibles compared to what the government has to say. In a government store, you're allowed to buy an edible that's 10 milligrams, and that's it. 10 milligrams is a dose of cannabis edible that is the place to start for novice users. But it's not the place that most people end up, and it's certainly not the place where most people end up when they're using it for pain and other debilitating situations. So people need access to high-dose edibles. High-dose edibles are not dangerous. They need to be regulated in that people understand that the dosage are standardized to some degree, and that there can be a problem with eating too much, and you need to avoid doing that. You don't really need to tell people that, you know, when they don't get told that and they eat too much, they just don't do it again. They don't die as a result of it. There's no long-term health implications as a result of it. They have an uncomfortable experience that they don't appreciate very much, and they don't want to do it again. And it self-regulates as a result of that. And no government, no doctor, nobody can tell you what dose you need for whatever it is you're trying to deal with. Only you can find that out, and you won't know until you go there. When you go there, start low and go slow and see where it ends you up. And you'll figure out what dose works, and maybe you'll have just a little bit of uncomfortableness at some point, and you'll go, well, okay, well, there's a limit. There's a dose that I want to try to avoid. I'll step that down a little bit and find out what works for yourself. But nobody else can tell you what works for yourself but you. And governments thinking that they can come in and tell you that you can only have this much and this is right and that's, they don't know. They don't know what's right and wrong. They don't know what's right for you. Only you know. So they need to get out of the business of trying to tell people how much they should be taking of things. How much alcohol do you drink? Does the government tell you how much you're allowed to drink? No, they'll tell you that if you drank too much, they're not going to let you drive home, or they're not going to serve you any more in a bar. But they don't tell you that you can only drink so much of and you can only buy so much. It's up to you. And how do you know? You figured it out. You drank too much one time. You don't go there anymore, or you try not to, or you don't go there very often, or most of us don't. Some people do, but you know what I mean? Eventually you're like, this is terrible. I'm sick all the time. I'm going to stop doing this. It's a self-regulating thing. That's what life is all about. We are self-regulators ourselves. It doesn't work when other people try to regulate us. And so governments need to give people the respect that they deserve as individuals and let them have access to all the things that are out there. Tell them the truth about things. Give us the information that we need, especially if things have potentials for being dangerous or harmful in some way. But to try to prohibit doesn't work. To try to prohibit causes all of those other problems. It's a waste of money. It's not going to get the intentions that they say they're looking for. It just feeds a whole bunch of money makers that unscrupulously make money off of people's illness and sickness and pain and suffering, and it's all driven by prohibition. We need to end that. We need to end the ability of public servants to be able to do that. So thank you to everybody that is helping us on our journey, that has helped us on our journey. There's been so many people. This whole program of the Cannabis Substitution Project runs strictly by volunteers and with donations, and it's always been that way. So, thanks for supporting us, and thanks for your future support, which we hopefully will get down the road as we continue to expand what we're doing until we can't be ignored anymore, until the government has to say, okay, we're going to let the sick people have what they need. And I really hope that happens fast. And I'm thankful to Pot TV for giving me the platform, to my producer and Neil for all his hard work in making the show work. You can watch other Pot TV shows, Carly Marley, BC Bud Gal every Monday, not every Monday, but some Mondays. I guess all the shows are sometimes, maybe even mine, although mine seems to be pretty much every Tuesday. But when they're on, and it's a great show. It's very entertaining, lots of education going on. Mondays at 4 o'clock. On Thursdays, it's BC Bud Gal again with Morning Glory, a wake and bake show, more about entertainment and the cannabis lifestyle. On Fridays, Johnny B with How's It Growing, and Johnny B's program is very important. You can watch many of his episodes in the archives if he's not doing a live show, and learn how to grow and figure out if you can. And if you can do it, it's beneficial because the plant's valuable for one thing, especially if you're using it, but it's therapeutic as well, and it really helps to move the movement forward. If we all grow enough for ourselves and for others as well, we're still trying to overgrow corruption in this world of ours. So thank you so much for all of you people. Watch lots of Pot TV, lots of stuff in the archives. Be active, do something, and then you can have a little bit of hope, and you'll have a little bit of more hope, and you'll have a little bit of jump in your step. If you're doing something, if you write a letter, if you make a phone call, if you have a conversation, and you explain to somebody that this situation is wrong, and maybe we could do something about it, if you inspire somebody else to do something, all of those things will brighten your day, will energize you, and put more value into your life. That's one thing we can do to feel good about ourselves, is to feel like we're contributing in some way, and here's a big way that we really need to contribute in, and that is the overall functioning of our governing bodies and how they deal with us and what we consume and what we want to do with our states of mind and all of those sorts of things. We really need to think about these things. So thanks again. We'll see you next week. In the meantime, be kind to each other, be kind to yourself, and have as much fun as you can.